Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to our first podcast for the month of April. We're in the fourth month of the year. Wonderful time, springtime. I hope you're feeling the breath of new birth in your life, wherever you are. I hope you are seeing lots of flowers and hearing lots of birds tweeting. I want to say a lovely happy Tuesday to you. I missed you. I hope you've missed us too. We have a wonderful session planned for today, and I hope that you will be informed and educated and blessed. So, without further ado, I want to remind you that as we welcome you to another Tuesday with Sanya, well, not just another Tuesday, it's another It Is Possible Tuesdays with Sanya. I just want to remind you that the Bible says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for prosperity and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, "With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to ask my wonderful guest to introduce herself, and I'm going to tell you something. You are going to be blown away by her name. Please introduce yourself to us.
Hello, good evening. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Rejoice Lamina, and I live in London. And it's an honor to be on this show. When
Lovely.
I Thank you. Go ahead.
Um, I want, before we go any further, I am sure everybody's going, "Rejoice." That's an unusual name. Tell me a little bit about who named you and why you got the name Rejoice.
Okay. I was named by my parents, obviously, but it was more or less my mother. I had a sister who was stillborn, and she was called Joyce. And so when she passed away, obviously I came later on, and I looked identical to Joyce. And so my mother looked at the word re in Latin means again. So when you add the re and the Joyce plus, obviously you look at the word together. It's rejoice, to be happy, to rejoice in the Lord. So I've had that name, and I can assure you, over the years growing up as a child, if somebody met me, they'd ask me, "What's your name?" I would say, "My name is Martha or Chloe." I just felt really embarrassed having to say my name was Rejoice, because with the name Rejoice, there is a lot of responsibility. You've got to be constantly happy. So
Oh,
that's the story.
it's a beautiful story. It's a lovely story. And I think anybody meeting you for the first time and hearing your name and hearing the story behind it, or even without hearing the story behind it, a smile comes to their face. And I think I understand a little bit your concern about the fact that you would constantly have to live up to the name Rejoice, being constantly
Yes.
happy, and therefore thinking, "Let me hide behind another name." But as the years have gone, have you found that you have been embracing your name more?
Yes, I have. And I think I really truly believe when you name a child, it sort of works together in terms of the personality. And I think with the name Rejoice, it's afforded me the opportunity to bring joy and gladness, even in very difficult situations. And so even when I go anywhere, it's a talking piece. The first thing people say,
Yes.
"Rejoice." What a name. Or they start to sing, "Rejoice, rejoice." So, yes, I'm
Yeah.
honored and blessed to have this name, because I'm able to live the name and bring hope, comfort to anyone that I meet, even if it's just for 5 minutes.
Fantastic. I think that's a wonderful legacy to have. And you would
Yes,
not have thought about it as a child growing up. But I think that in your line of work, which we're going to talk about a little later,
yes,
it's quite appropriate. But before we get to your line of work, you mentioned that you live in London.
yes.
Where are you from originally? Tell me a little bit about your background.
Okay, my background, originally I'm from Zimbabwe. Um, during the we obviously Zimbabwe was a country next to is a country next to South Africa, and we were going through the phase of apartheid where the black people were trying to gain independence, and Zimbabwe used to be called Rhodesia. So
Rhodesia.
my parents obviously were very involved in the freedom struggle. My
Mm,
father was involved heavily, and so was my mother. And so they moved us over to Zambia, which was a neighboring country. And while I was in Zambia, obviously I got my education there. I went to nursery, English nursery, because at the time you still had a lot of English people. I went to study at a school well known across the world called International School. And I studied my O levels and did my scholastic aptitude test, TOEFL test of English, a foreign language. And then I
yes.
decided I wanted to study law. But I didn't, my father and I and my mother, we didn't realize at the time that if you go into the United States, you can't straight away do a degree in law. And so I chose the next best thing, and that was fashion design and merchandising. So
Oh,
my parents got me a place. My father and mother accompanied me, and I went over to the United States, to Dallas, Texas, where I studied fashion design and merchandising, history of art, and had an opportunity to work for Calvin Klein when they first came out with the jeans and the underwear
yes.
within the store as a fashion buyer. But then my life changed after that. I moved back home and spent some time there working as a fashion buyer. Didn't really enjoy that. Felt, the desire to help women and help others. And so I came back to England and I studied law, and I had my law degree, and went on to work with a law firm, and then from there my careers changed, along the way. Found myself in human resource management, and then in HR, and also found myself working as a senior manager using the skill set I had, and the legal sides of things, because I was obviously working within the law as well on a sort of part-time basis. So it enabled me to gain a lot of experience over the years within the business side of things. And I had an opportunity to work for an organization that has now since gone. And it was a sort of a welfare to work, helping young people back into employment. And I had to go to places like, wherever the young people were, Felton Prison, and so forth. And it was then that we realized that some of the young people were not performing. And part of the reason perhaps they're not able to study well or to be able to manage was because they had either additional learning needs or there was trauma in their lives. And so I started a department for safeguarding, and that was the beginning of my career. I believe God led me to do that. And during the time, I've always had a passion for young people. And I've been an AY leader, was AY leader for a very long time with my church. And then I became a youth elder supporting the youth. So young people are really, for me, my heartbeat, because I believe they are the future for us. And yes, I think
Wow.
I'm talking too much. I love to
Not,
talk.
no, 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 not at all, Rejoice. I'm just sitting down here looking like, wow, that's a
Yes.
lot of experience. That's a lot for us to unpick, and I'm definitely going to jump in. So
Yes.
I like the fact that um your employment history is quite the tapestry,
Yes.
fashion design and merchandising. You went to the States to study, you studied in Zambia. Now tell me, I'm going to try to unravel a lot. Having traveled to Zambia, which is the next nearby state, was
Yes.
the difference in culture quite stark, or was it similar enough for you to have settled in quite well?
Well, I went as a baby, so
Yeah.
obviously
Okay.
Zambia
Yeah.
was what I know. I
No.
mean, I've
Oh.
been able to speak the languages, but I
Mhm.
found that because my parents were involved in the liberation struggle, we didn't
Mhm.
have a chance and opportunity to mix with many of the other children, apart from the children that we met at school
That's
or
cool.
at church. I'm
Yes,
Seventh
yes,
Day
yes.
Adventist and always was from a baby. That's what what
Yes.
we had, and so yes, the culture is similar. I mean, Zimbabwe is in Southern Africa, so is Zambia.
Mhm.
Zambia is a beautiful country. The people are absolutely awesome. We were supported with the president at the time, Kenneth Kaunda, and when you do get a chance, hopefully one day you'll come to Southern Africa. Definitely
Yes.
take you to Zambia. It's the place to be. Zimbabwe is also a great place to go
Yes.
to. Yes.
I do have friends who are from Zimbabwe and they do speak Shona, but you speak
Yes.
Ndebele.
Yes, I do. I speak Ndebele.
Right. Right.
Yes, which is similar
I,
to Zulu.
Okay, I have been to South Africa,
Oh,
and I
wow.
do hope to return to the continent because there's so much there for people of the diaspora. So you went to
Yes.
Zambia, you had your education. That would basically be where your formative years were.
Yes.
You mentioned that you're a Seventh Day Adventist. What was that like for you growing up? You mentioned that you were AY leader, but what was church like for you?
Okay. I mean, church for us, obviously, we're very involved. We're a small family, so it was myself, my parents, and my two brothers, one of whom's late. And obviously, in Africa, we tend to have extended families. So a lot of our relatives, perhaps those who weren't able to sort of support the children, they would come and live with us at different
Yes,
times.
the
So
times.
Sabbath was awesome for us because what would happen, we would support on preparation day, and we were privileged in the sense that we mom was working and dad was most of the time not in the country, was the liberation struggle, but we
Mhm,
used to have aunts and obviously would have helpers who would
mhm,
help us in terms of preparation, the meals and stuff like that. So we would have a chance on Sabbath, from Sabbath from Friday sunset. It would be
mhm,
time for worship. It would be time to
mhm,
study the Bible. Be time for us to relax. And then on Sabbath, we would go to church and we would join with other families. And in those days, there was no such thing as warming food. So we would have cold rice, cold chicken, and not chicken. I mean, yeah, there was chicken, but
yes,
mainly
okay.
vegetarian. But in Africa, most Adventists do eat chicken. I would say we're trying to, yeah,
Yeah,
make this
yeah.
transition.
It is what it is. It is what it is. Some people are vegetarian, some people are eat meat, and we're eating
Fish,
clean meat,
yes,
so that's
yes.
fine. It is what it is. But I guess for you, Sabbath was a lovely day. You looked forward
It
to it,
was.
and you thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes, it was a perfect time of rest. It was a time when you could, lay aside everything else. It was time when we could spend time as a family with friends. It was a time where we could worship, we could read, study the Bible. We would sing, have sing-alongs, and it would be a time where it was a time of peace. So with when
Yes.
we were arguing as children, this is mine. This on Sabbath there was none of that. It was harmony, perfect peace and love.
Yeah,
And yes,
yeah.
and I absolutely welcome the Sabbath even now. It's just that time to connect with our Father in heaven. I mean, He's just so awesome. And
Indeed,
yes,
indeed. So you didn't like the fashion world.
y-
You didn't find it as fulfilling as you thought. And then you went to your first love because you wanted to do law. And
yes,
you traveled to the UK and you acquired your law degree,
yes.
and um you what was that as fulfilling as you expected?
Most definitely. It was absolutely fulfilling. Now, in terms of the fashion, the reason why I didn't pursue that was because obviously it wasn't because I didn't. It wasn't no longer first love. I mean, I still enjoy, designing and helping and
Yes.
doing things like that. But I think it was more or less looking at how can I positively
Mhm,
impact
mhm, mhm,
others that are needing help. For example, women that are going through abuse. How do I help people to understand what freedom is all about? And so I believe the law degree has helped me, and has helped me in many, many ways. I was able to go back to Zimbabwe. The reason I didn't really fully fulfill that and train up as a barrister or work. I mean, obviously, I did go to law school, but then our law, the
mhm.
challenge was that I studied here where it was English law, whereas in
Mm,
Zimbabwe, it's
Zimbabwe.
Roman Dutch law. So I
Mm.
didn't really want to have
Ah,
to. I didn't really want to have to go through that, because at that time I really wanted to obviously continue with my life, to be able to impact, financially, to do things, because I mean,
mhm,
I've always been philanthropic, even with the little that I have. And I
mhm.
felt that it was holding me back, and I prayed and asked God to guide me, but it is not wasted, because I've been able to utilize it in a mighty, powerful way, to make a difference, to stand in. It gives you the opportunity to understand the legality of things, to be able to
Yes.
I've supported many people, employment tribunals and stuff. When you have the foundation of law, you are able to really, it's up to the individual to go ahead and expand. I did obviously do the training in Zimbabwe, trying to transition to become a barrister there, but obviously it was Roman Dutch law. Plus, there's also an element of where we have the element of the traditional law. But at that time, I had an opportunity to work for a very big organization back in England within recruitment. I was head of recruitment, so I've done a lot of things, but somehow God has allowed me to get all these skills that help me. Sort of, I'm more like a one-stop shop. If somebody comes needing help, I'm able to facilitate, especially the young people, women, or just anybody, because it's sort of like an all-round training. And I believe God, when we allow God to use us, we should not limit ourselves and be able to
Awesome.
do. Yes,
Anything. Yeah. It ties in so perfectly with the scripture that we read. God has plans for us. And with
yes,
him, all things are possible. The fashion, the law, the human
human
resources,
resources.
your
Yes,
experiences. And I'm not even sure if you realize it. Your parents were freedom fighters, and you
yes,
are also a freedom fighter of some sorts. I don't know if you recognize that, because you've mentioned
yes,
about sharing with people what is freedom. And
definitely.
you've spoken about women. I get the impression that women are very important to you.
Yes.
Um, why do you think women are so important to you?
First of all, I'm a woman myself, and so I've obviously come across, I've experienced sort of challenges as a woman, and I think a woman is the mother, the one that obviously brings and raises the children. And I think when we can equip the mother, it's always, or the woman,
Mhm.
uh, then obviously we have established something.
Yes.
And I think for me, sisterhood, looking out for one another. The only thing I find is that I wish, as women, we could. Sometimes I feel we should we should be one.
Mhm.
We should
Mhm.
really work to support each other.
Yes.
Wherever you
Yes.
come from,
Yes.
whichever part of the world, we're
Mhm.
sisters. And it's
Yes.
embracing that sisterhood to make the world a better place. And I believe that God gives us the gifts and the talents to impact others. Whatever He gives us, He gives it to us in trust to help somebody else. And so for me, it's all about making sure that I'm constantly learning new things, constantly educating myself. So, like I said, I can be that one stop shop, and I can also train other women and other young people to be the best that they can be, to support those that haven't got the opportunity. I don't believe whatever it is, whatever talent, whatever gift we have, God has given it us just for ourselves. He's given it to us to empower others. And so for me, that's my mission. That's what God has called me to do. I may not be, be able to do the best or whatever, but the little that I have and I know, I want to give it out and share and help others to be able to do the same. If we could all do the same thing, like pass it on, I've acquired this knowledge, or and then pass it on, and everyone does that, I believe this place would be a better place.
Preach it, sister. Yes, I see your passion coming through, and I feel it, this desire to help others, to pass it forward, to pass it on, to empower, to develop, not to keep things for ourselves, to share it. And it tells me that you have a big heart. It tells me that you have a lot of love and empathy for others. Where do you
Yes.
think this was? Where do you think this started? This love for others, this empathy.
I believe it's a gift. I truly believe it's a gift. I cannot tell you from the time I've been born, I've always known that my calling is to give. And I find the more you give, and it doesn't necessarily mean giving material things, it's just giving, giving of oneself, giving knowledge, whatever you are called to do it well. And for me, it's service for the master. I
Yes.
believe he's brought me here for a purpose. And I pray every single day that God will equip me to. I'm not perfect. I've made so many mistakes. I'm
Always.
not perfect, but please, Lord, help me to do what you've called me to do. And I think for me, I never knew what God had called me to do. But somehow in life, it's full of peaks and troughs. You have your moments where they're up and moments where they're down. And sometimes when we find ourselves in a situation where things don't seem to be working, when we feel I cannot hear God's voice, I don't know what God wants me to do. Why is it that I'm suffering? Why am I ill? Why am I without a job? Why am I
Mhm,
struggling? A lot of this, all this is really to for you first of all. It's also part of the pruning process, but
mhm,
it's also part of you getting to accept, understand God, and to be
mhm,
able to empathize and be able to understand. If someone said to me, what is it like to be hungry? Maybe I haven't necessarily been hungry, but I know what it's
mhm,
like perhaps not to have a job, not to be looking
mhm,
for a job. You're applying and
mhm.
nothing seems to be coming. So I think the experiences we have are there for us to use them to give to others, to know that there is hope. Whatever
Mhm,
you're going
mhm.
through, it's a pruning process to strengthen you, to make you better, to refine you so that you can do the work that God has called you to do.
Yes, called for a purpose and a purpose
Yes,
driven life. We're
definitely.
not like flotsam. We're not just floating around. We are
Yes.
moving with purpose. And you mentioned that you prayed to God, which suggests to me that your relationship with God is quite important to you. How
Yes.
have you seen God's hand working in your life?
I think for me, how have I seen God's hand working for my life? There was a time growing up from a small child. I used to dream of myself going up and down the mountains with an old man that to me seemed like Moses, and we were preaching and sharing, and this used to reoccur all the time. But as life has it, I cannot tell you that I was always within the faith. Yes, I was always an Adventist, but sometimes when you're young, you kind of take a step away, but
Mhm,
then God
mhm,
will bring you back when you commit yourself and you say, Daddy, I love you. Use me as you see fit.
Yes.
Daddy will call you and pull you from wherever you are. And so
Mhm.
for me, I've always known with a name like Rejoice, I've always known in my heart, within my heart, that God is there. Situations just map out. I find myself in a very difficult situation in a job that I totally do not like. But then as time goes, I realize God put me there for a reason. Maybe there's one person was there who helped me. So I think it's about being in tune. It's not always, faith is not an easy road, but to constantly just surrender and ask God to do it because we cannot do it on our own.
I like that. To be in tune and to surrender. Um,
Yes.
the relationship, the road is not linear. It
No,
has
it's
ups
not.
and downs and
Yes.
curves and twists, and
Yes.
drops and mountains. But even when we wonder, I like the phrase, I like the word you actually used. You said daddy.
Yes.
And that talks about a real close personal relationship with God. He's not a faraway being, he's
No.
somebody close and personal to you that you have had situations, that you have had experiences with, and who you now know that you can trust, who you can now call daddy because you
Yes.
now understand that relationship.
Yes.
And I, I believe, based on what you've said and what we've heard from you today, that the you're empowering other people is closely wrapped up and quite integral to your relationship with God, because you want people to also be have that same power,
Yes.
that same experience that you have. Um, can you think of an experience where you have been able to link both your personal Christian life and your work life?
Yes, I can tell you many opportunities. For example, within as a safeguarding consultant, I have the opportunity to work in different organizations. For example, I was able to go and travel abroad, international safeguarding, where you're working with people who are marginalized. I've had the opportunity to
Mhm.
work in schools and colleges with all these different type of organizations. But I find that for me, wherever I've worked, I think it shines through that you must believe in you definitely believe in a higher power. And who is that higher power? It is the God that I serve. Because when I'm working with children, for example, who have been abused, I take the time to get to know them, or an individual, whatever the challenges are. There's that love and that kindness that shines through, and I don't do it purposely. And I find that it's become part of who I am because of the God that I serve. And they ask me, how come you're always happy? Why are you always smiling? Even when there's bad news, I can go into the bathroom and I just say, Lord, Dad, help me. I don't know what to
Mhm.
do. And he always delivers. So I think it's about being who you are, and just allowing God, and he will let it shine through. And you don't even have to tell people that I'm a believer. They can see it, smell it, and feel it.
Fantastic. You know, you are definitely blooming where you're planted, and people are definitely feeling the effects of your relationship with Christ, your upbringing, your exposure, your experience. You've spoken about, the last thing you mentioned was about going into the bathroom and requesting a solution and God delivering.
Yes.
Have you ever been in a situation where you have asked and a response did not come in the way that you wanted it to come, and you were at a loss? How have you handled that, if that has ever happened?
Yes, it's happened many times. And I think when it has happened, I have said, well, Dad, this is how it is. Sometimes I feel
Mhm.
disappointment. Sometimes I feel, why? But then I allow the situation to happen. But guess what? Later on, you find that situation turns, something turns for good. So, at the time, it may not happen the way you want it to be.
Mhm.
But then later on, for example, you will find yourself in a situation. I'll give you a classic example. Maybe I'm meant to attend a course or a program, and I don't want to go. And I end up there. And then you find that there's blessings that come from it. And maybe I've asked God, please help me to, to work things out this way, because I think my ways are the best ways. But it's about surrendering. It's God's ways. He will make the crooked places straight.
Yeah. You've used the word surrender more than once, and it suggests to me that your strength comes from your surrendering to God, because
Yes,
you see Him as the ultimate in your life. And
definitely.
once you give up your right, you recognize that you will gain more, and you haven't lost.
Definitely.
You haven't
Yes.
lost. Wonderful. You you mentioned that you are philanthropic. Um,
Yes.
Give me an example of this altruistic side of you.
Okay, in terms of philanthropic, I make sure that whatever I earn, I return faithfully, and then I ensure that a good proportion goes to help others, whether it's somebody locally, or giving to charity, or helping, family, wherever the opportunity presents. Because I believe, like I said, whatever God gives us, He gives
Yes.
us in trust to help others. And philanthropy doesn't always need to be money. It could be ideas, it could
Yes.
be teaching a skill, it could be even just giving a listening ear. Because
Mhm.
sometimes we're not in a position to necessarily give money, but whatever God has given you, whatever gift you have, share it.
Yes, yes, yes. We are called stewards for a reason. And it's
Yes,
most people think we're stewards of money. It's about how I spend my money. Yes, definitely, because God wants us to be wise with our money. But we have so many other things that He has given us that we need to be stewards of, and that we can share with others, our time, our talent,
yes,
or the environment.
definitely.
There's so many things where we can share and take care of and show God how we have understood this idea of being a good steward for Him. Uh,
Amen. Yes.
you know, I, I'm I'm enjoying my conversation with you,
I'm
Rejoice, and
enjoying it with you
so
too. Yes, thank
I am
you.
so happy. I'm so happy that we met and we connected, because so often people have stories, or people are going about their lives, and people don't understand how much they have to give and how much they have experienced, and how much of a one-stop shop they are, how much of a resource they are. And I'm hoping
Yes,
that our audience, having listened to you, will be able to connect with you, and
hope
you'll
so.
be able to pour into a new avenue, of persons who will be able to make contact with you. And you spoke about sisterhood. Now, and you told us this lovely, heartwarming story about your sister Joyce, and the fact that your mom named you Rejoice,
Yes.
because of the connection. You've spoken about sisterhood. Do you have a support network of women that you rely on?
Yes, I think the first person that I rely on more than anything else, my best friend, my love, my everything, is my mother. That's the first person, and I'm really privileged to have her. I connect with, I've got friends, a couple of friends, and family as well. I'm open to new relationships in terms of meeting people, and treating everyone that I meet as a sister. Sometimes it's not always within my local church.
Mhm.
We do have a very warm, loving relationship amongst us. We have a lot of potlucks and meals, and we get together. So my church family as well,
Yeah.
they are my support.
Lovely. I smiled when you said potlucks because within the Adventist church, um, food is so integral to our meetings.
Yes, it is.
we have a no, a board meeting, or we have a department meeting, and we need to make sure that we have some food just to ensure that we have
Yes,
an event at church, and we need to make sure that we have food because everybody. It seems as if we become um, more open, more
definitely.
comfortable, more relaxed when there's food, and drink. And I think that is something. I think it's behind. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we are Afro-Caribbean, and it seems to be
Yes,
in our DNA for us to use food as a social binder. You know,
definitely.
so many events are within that element. You have weddings, you have contracts being made, and all of that, but it really does create a sense of unity when we are all at the table.
Yes, it does.
Idea of unity, of support, of network, whether it's among women or men or
Men,
family,
of course.
church
Yes.
family, the community. And I want to ask you, in your understanding or in your role as safeguarding, do you see the need for stronger families within the society in order to eliminate the need for safeguarding?
I believe safeguarding in terms of abuse and things like that cannot. Yes, being part of a family, close knit family, where we're looking out for each other, keeping each other safe. Yes,
Mhm.
is awesome. Is something great to have.
Mhm.
However, I believe having a family isn't enough. I think it's more about
Mhm.
a community.
Yes.
Because when you look at safeguarding, safeguarding isn't something, yes, you may have the strong family unit, but I think, as a community, safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. It's
Mhm.
not just assigned to one person. We all have, if you're walking down the street and you can see that there's something untoward going on, there is that responsibility for us to step and help. But unfortunately, the way the world is today, many are fearful to get involved. And so, yeah, strong communities, strong family bonds, wherever possible, is key.
There's always the idea of it takes a village to
Yes,
raise a child. And when you find a community that looks out for others, it makes a world of difference to the feeling of comfort and
yes,
confidence that a child has,
yes,
growing up. And I remember when I was a child, anybody could have reprimanded me,
yes,
anybody could have fed me,
yes.
because that's how we grew up. Your next door neighbor was not just your next door neighbor. That was somebody you call auntie so and so or uncle so and so. And they saw you on the road. You had to make sure you were behaving yourself. And if you were misbehaving, they'd reprimand you. And it was taken as though your own family had reprimanded you, but they were looking out for you. And I think that in the 21st century, a lot of that community sense has been lost, and it's more individualistic.
Yes.
What would you suggest can be done to bring about that sense of community, of oneness, of looking out for others, of being, as you said, safeguarding being everybody's business?
I think the first thing important is building. Obviously, first of all, one must have that. It starts from within. So one should make that commitment that I am going to ensure that I keep everyone that I know around me safe. And it's about being courageous to, when you see something going on, to be able to report it. I think we cannot really control what other people do. We can control what we do. So, when I see abuse, and abuse comes in different forms, that different, it could be emotional, could be sexual, could be financial, it could be, there's all sorts of abuse that are going on, domestic violence, whatever. But I think it's about each individual taking on the responsibility to say, when I see something like this, I'm not going to keep quiet about it.
Yes.
I'm going to report it so that it is done. Something is done about it. For example, a
Yeah.
person is beating up their children. One sees
Mhm,
it, so well, it's discipline. But I think
mhm,
because sometimes you cannot necessarily tell the abuser
mhm, mhm.
that this is what you're doing because it's ingrained or it's the way they operate. So I think it's important to report it where one needs to do it, because if
Yeah.
not, then obviously that's when you hear all
Yes.
these cases. And it's also making sure that we educate ourselves to identify what
Yes.
is abuse,
Yes. Yes.
in relationships, in
Mhm,
families.
mhm,
So it's
mhm.
taking that. If we all did that, this would be a better world to live in. But unfortunately, today, a lot of people see abuse, they turn their back. I'm not getting involved. It's none of my business.
Yes.
And I think really it starts with each individual, and getting
Um,
to know what abuse is, educating oneself.
yeah. Having relationships, being
Yes,
informed, being aware, and acting upon the information that we have, not being afraid.
yes,
There's an advert that we see on in the train stations and so forth, where it says, "If you see it, say it." You know, so don't keep the information to yourself. Report it. You're not a snitch. It's about ensuring that everybody is safe. It goes back to the Bible passage which says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." You
yes,
know, you would want somebody to look out for you,
definitely.
look out for others. It's
Yes,
about us thinking not about myself, but about my brother. We're family.
we're all
We
family. Yes,
we're all one man's children. And if you're my brother or you're my sister, I need to look out for you. I need to ensure
yes,
that I'm taking care of you, or I'm helping you to take care of yourself. Um, I work with vulnerable people. Now,
yes.
what are some of the tips that you would give someone about ensuring that we keep vulnerable people safe? How do we keep people who are exceptionally at risk because of their disability or because they're marginalized? What are some of the things that we may need to do to keep them safe?
I think, first of all, the most important thing is when you see someone with a disability, it's first of all getting to understand, who they are, what they are, because sometimes when people have a disability, they tend to be marginalized. People don't want to, but it's getting to understand, first of all, what is the disability, what is the situation, getting to know them, identifying. And I think it's in order to identify abuse, you've got to be able to have some level of relationship, understanding. If you see a child crying, who's not able to speak, trying to find out
Mm,
what is it that is causing that. I think it's getting to know and understand that people with disabilities are, that they need that love, that support, and it's just getting an understanding what is abuse, identifying, watching, observations,
yes.
asking questions,
Mhm.
and sharing that information.
Yes, yes. It all goes back to having an interest in others, wanting to
Yes,
build relationships. And
yes,
if I have a relationship with you, then I will know if something is not right because I've been spending time with you. And
yes,
the more I spend time with you and the more I'm informed about who you are, then the better able I am to help you, to support
yes.
you in a way that is useful and beneficial to you.
Yes, and I think it's also important that we educate ourselves to understand some of the areas people with additional learning needs, and even doing a little course in law to understand what are the legalities of things,
Yes.
just making sure that one takes that we are our brother and sisters keepers, and we
Yes.
can see that mental health is rife,
Oh,
being
yes.
able not to be
Yes.
afraid, but if you cannot do it yourself, signposting
It's
or
possible.
getting somebody
Yes.
else to see that. And I mean, we look at the, look at the story of the lepers, how the Lord,
Yes.
mingled. So that's what we need to do, not look at someone with a disability or mental health and basically ignore or don't want anything to do with them. I think we don't know where we ourselves will end up. And
Yes.
I think it's so important, um, to love. It's all about love. When you love
Yeah.
another human being, you will do what needs to be done when the time is calling you to
Right.
do it, or when it's necessary.
Yes. Yes. Um, rejoice.
Yes.
Beautiful. I, I have learned quite a lot from you today. I am really happy that we had the time to talk, and you've shared so much so effortlessly and with such passion and compassion that I know that our listeners, I actually had one person say she's speaking the way I am thinking.
Oh, that's
So you
lovely.
you are you are definitely making an impact on our listeners. You've spoken about your upbringing. You've spoken about having come from the former Rhodesia, living in Zambia, going to the States to study, coming back to Zambia and living in Zambia, going to Zimbabwe, coming to the UK, studying law, and having a plethora of experience. And, you're now in your field as a safeguarding consultant, sharing your knowledge and empowering people, specifically women, around the issue of inequality and abuse, and ensuring that you use your experience, but not just your experience, your relationship, your Christian background to impact and empower people. You are a philanthropist, and not only that, you rely closely on God. You pray to him for
Yes.
direction. You're from a close-knit family, and you know I know that our listeners have been blessed by your sharing with me today. And I just want to find out from you. My program is entitled It Is Possible Tuesdays.
Yes.
How would you say the idea of it is possible has manifested itself in your life?
I honestly believe that when we talk about it, it is possible. I think when you give yourself of Christ, and this is what I want to inject to everyone that is listening, that when we allow God in our lives to use us, He will open doors and lead us sometimes in areas where we think, I'm not able to do this. And for me, I think we should not be in stagnant waters. God
Mm,
wants us to be walking in the river where it's flowing. So we should be constantly growing, developing. We shouldn't be the same today, today as we were yesterday. What do I mean by that? I'm constantly studying. I'm a life coach for children and young people. I'm working on my PhD for psychology to work, so I'm starting my master's and PhD alongside, yes, one with the other. It's difficult, but I'm preparing, what I'm going to write my thesis on. So what I'm trying to say is wherever we are, let us just keep walking, going through those waters so that God can use us to help others. Do not be the same. Do not be afraid. And don't say, I can't afford it. Because when God has got a plan for you, He will make it possible. He will make the provision. All you need to do is to be willing to say, Dad, use me. Here I am. Let's
yes.
go.
Yes, yes, lovely. I love that. Dad, here I am. I'm available to you. Do what you
Let's
have to
go.
do. I
Yes.
love that. I love it. I love the fact that you're constantly learning. And congratulations on your MA and your PhD. It's awesome. And God wants us to be leaders, people of influence. We are his children. We're his chosen generation. And
Yes.
you are doing a marvelous job in showcasing that your dad is indeed taking care of you.
Yes.
Rejoice, it has been a pleasure talking with you today. I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together.
Thank
And,
you so much.
you, it, I'm happy that we connected, and I'm sure that our listeners are also happy that they've heard your story. And you've spoken about the fact that you're a life coach, and I have mentioned that you're a safeguarding consultant, and you've spoken about your law degree and all of these things. And I I'm going to allow you to give a plug, so that if there's anybody who wants to make contact with you, they may make contact with you. So the floor is now open for you to give them your digits, or your, not if not your digits, then your contact, your website, your an email address that they may contact you at if they
Okay.
want to.
Okay,
Okay.
so at the moment, I'm in the middle of building my website. My company is called Start Nova Limited. Start Nova means starting all over again. You may contact me. I'm on LinkedIn under the name Joy Lamina. And yeah, so please,
Fantastic.
if there's anything I can, I have a lot of opportunities to network or to support others who may want to get information. I think, we are family. So
Yeah.
please just reach out and yeah,
Lovely.
and let's connect.
Lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from It Is Possible Tuesdays with Sanya. Joy Lamina, rejoice, starting all over, you know. Make contact with her at LinkedIn, and make sure that you network with her. Doors are opening every
And
day.
they can get my
She is
number
a
from
great
you.
person. Oh,
Yes.
lovely. Definitely. No problem. Rejoice, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm inspired. You spoke to me today. You did, and I'm really blessed by your conversation and what you've had to share. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of another It Is Possible Tuesday with Sanya, my lovely guest, Rejoice Lamina from
Sonia,
Zimbabwe, Zambia, and presently living in the UK. Lovely. Thank you very much, ladies and
thank
gentlemen.
you,
I just want to,
Sonia.
you're very
Thank you
welcome.
so
Just
much.
want to
And I,
remind you
yes,
that you are to be a dreamer, a doer, and a thinker. See possibility everywhere. Because you are alive, everything is possible. But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, it is bye bye from It Is Possible Tuesdays with Sanya. See you
God bless
soon.
you, Sonia.
You're
Yeah,
very
When
welcome.
I
thank you.
call on Jesus, all things are possible. I can mount on wings like eagles and soar. When I call on Jesus, mountains are gonna fall. 'Cause he'll move heaven and earth to come rescue me when I call. La la la